Everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Bulletproof Selling. My name is Sean Rhodes, the Chief Sales Sergeant here at Bulletproof Selling and author of the book Bulletproof Selling, a guide for systemizing sales on the battlefield of business. Now, here at Bulletproof Selling, our mission, our mantra, the thing that we believe more than anything else is that sales has to rely on something more than just hope. Hope is not a sales strategy. And so we are here every week, multiple times a week sometimes, to help you remove hope from how it is that you sell, whether it's from lead generation, qualification, driving conversations, negotiating, getting proposals and quotes out the door, and of course, converting clients down the road into referral partners. The entire sales cycle we've dealt with it here at Bulletproof Selling. And as a result of that, we've been able to bring on guests that have helped us build sales systems for every step of the sales cycle, from best-selling authors, Hall of Fame speakers, people that are out there in the field managing sales teams. And so in the course of this podcast, this live stream series, we're going to build sales systems with our guests around what topic? I don't know, because it changes every single week based on what our conversations lead us into and, of course, what the salespeople out there need. And I can promise you that you'll be able to use this sales system immediately after we build it, no matter the size of your team or the size of your goals. And as I get out there in the world, as I'm sharing the stage with a lot of great people out there, I run into folks that are, of course, managing sales teams themselves, that have a long history and background in sales. These are some of the conversations that I love the best, because these folks have a frontline view. Just like I had a frontline view of the troops that I was able to embed with in battlefields around the world, these folks are on the front line with sales. They're out there meeting prospects, they're managing salespeople. And of course, it's always great that if I get to partner with an event to bring the message of Bulletproof Selling to their attendees, to their guests, that I get to speak to people within the audience to learn from them exactly how sales is changing in their industry, and of course what they're seeing the very best do to remove hope from how it is that they sell. And so it's my pleasure to welcome this week's guest, President of Wells Insurance, Mr. Trey Sinclair. Trey, welcome to Bulletproof Selling.
Hi, Sean. Thanks for having me on.
Now, Trey, you and I met, of course, through the Florida Association of Insurance Agents. You are also the chair of the Young Agents Council. Tell us about what that is and about the firm that you run, that you're the president of.
So the Young Agents Council is a group of new to the industry individuals through the Florida Association of Insurance Agents. And what this is really about is a launching pad for people's professional career in the insurance industry. Florida, you being here in Florida, you know, our insurance market is unlike any other. So it's really important to collaborate, learn from those who have made some mistakes or had some success in the industry, so we can get better as a group of professionals. And the Young Agents Council really does a good job of preparing people professionally for the next step in their career, I can say. And, the other question about what I am, what I do. So I am the president of Wells Insurance Agency. It's been around since 1940. And I came on board as a president in 2018. My dad was the prior president, and he kind of stepped aside, and I stepped into that role after working, under him for about 8 years. So I'm not brand new to the industry, but I gravitated toward those newcomers to our industry because we need a lot of help. We need a lot of collaboration.
Talk to me about the role that you have within the company. Is it a small insurance agency where you're kind of wearing 80 different hats in addition to being a salesperson? Do you have a team of independent agents underneath you? Talk to me a little bit about how your agency is structured.
So the structure is pretty interesting. When I came on, my dad did all of the financial accounting, and then the front office was a team of 4 other people that we handled the day-to-day, the taking the payments, handling the endorsements, the new business. Everyone's role was a little bit one size fits all. So we had to wear a lot of different hats on the floor. When I took over, obviously I take on those responsibilities of the financials and selling and things like that. But what I wanted to do was try to isolate some of those roles and make them more defined, so successes would be a little bit easier to repeat. So we're in that pivoting stage. Not to plug your book, but this is kind of our segment of trying to take something that was working okay and trying to refine it and make it work much better.
So build systems, I hear. Build process.
That's right.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Good. Then you are exactly in the right spot. So are you the one driving most of the sales or all of the sales for your agency, or do you have other people engaged in that as well?
So I try to separate the sales. The personal lines is a little bit different type of product. It is a much easier product to sell right away. And we have someone, she's been doing an outstanding job for us. I actually hired her when she was 17 and she's doing great. So, that's been a blessing. And so she can handle the personal lines. And my focus is on the commercial lines, which are usually a little bit higher premium, but a little bit more complicated types of policies.
Gotcha. All right. So for the Young Agents Council, then, how many young agents are you kind of representing as the chair of that council?
That's a good question. So the numbers ebb and flow.
Yeah.
I have a goal to get our membership up to 400. I think we're
Nice.
teetering in the 320 ballpark right now.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
It's
so a
it's
couple
a
hundred
really
for
great
sure then. And these
organization. Go ahead.
and what is the age range of these agents again? Yeah, I think you'd mentioned it.
So it's kind of deceptive. The young agent doesn't have to be young at all. It's 10 years or newer in the industry or under 40. You just have to meet one of those criteria. So
Gotcha.
we really I see our industry taking on more folks from different industries because we're going to have a talent gap. A lot of folks are retiring, so we could be taking on young agents that are not exactly young themselves, but they're young in the industry.
And so this is interesting because a lot of the work that we do at Bulletproof Selling is to get agents spun up faster, whether they're agents or they're salespeople, whatever job title they're going by, to be able to think, all right, what is the thing that person that has 30 years in the industry knows? What have they learned across 10, 20, 30,000 sales calls that they can just do naturally? And I'm sure your dad was probably like this. You're probably entering that stage of mastery right now where you've just kind of seen it all. You've done it all. You know real quick if this is a conversation worth pursuing or if I should just hang up the phone and go on to somebody else. So I'm curious, what do you see that the chief challenges that people that are new into the insurance agency face? Because I'll bet there's a lot of salespeople from a variety of industries that are going to be challenged by the same thing. So if I'm new to the industry of insurance, what are some of the things that the biggest hurdles that I really have to overcome to become successful?
I think someone coming into the industry does not have the long view that an experienced agent has. So what I mean by that is there are repercussions to every policy we write. A newer agent may not feel the importance of every little coverage and endorsement and detail on a policy. When we talk about sales, they're thinking of here and now, not the relationship building that happens over the course of years, maybe even decades. And a bad claim will haunt you as an insurance agent. I have talked to many people in the industry, and we kind of share this dark little secret, which is we wake up in the middle of the night because we worry so much about the things that we put into our policies or forget or try to keep track of. And it's a form of long stress is what I would call it. There's no intense pressure. Like I used to be a loan officer. That was an intense pressure to sell now and, get loans on the books. Whereas in insurance, it's more of a relationship and you build that book of business over time. This is not a get rich quick scheme. It's a relationship building, and you have to nurture that relationship by really knowing your craft and making sure when something bad does happen that you're there for them and you're prepared, and hopefully your policy is up to par.
So it seems like the salespeople in the industry, or people new to the industry, it seems like hope really plays a lot into hoping that whatever I did include in this policy is going to be good enough to retain this customer for the long term. Because we know it can get highly competitive, maybe not here in Florida, but definitely in a lot of other markets. There's a lot of companies vying for the same book of business. So if I don't do the right things now, then when that comes time for renewal, or it comes time for that person to consider the commercial line, or to consider insuring something else, or just to reach out for advice on something that they're planning on buying, which of course is exactly where we want them to be in the insurance world, to be that person they come to with that type of question so that we can help guide them in the right direction. There's a lot of hope involved if I'm just thinking, well, I'm just going to write the same policy I wrote for the last person and hopefully this works out. So where do you see the people new to the insurance industry relying on hope a lot more than they should in the first couple of years as it applies to playing the long game? Because that's the word you mentioned I like a lot, the long game. Where does hope factor into that?
So I think an easy mistake for agents to make is that when they're building these comprehensive coverage plans for their clients, the company may want to sell one particular package that benefits the carrier, and the client would really benefit with maybe a different set of endorsements and features and coverages. So if the agent relies too much on what the carrier is really focusing on, they miss out on that personal commitment to the client to try to make sure that they are properly protected. And getting back to your word hope, as an agent, you're hoping that the carrier has the best intention for the client, but we're a contract business. Hope does not play into the role of written words. You have to make sure that when the contract is signed, that everything's there in black and white that you want it to say. You can't hope that it does. You have to verify that it does.
And so let's build a sales system around this, because it's not something that we've ever been able to address here at Bulletproof Selling. Of course, a lot of sales is what you mentioned. It's the immediate. It's I've got a goal that I need to reach this quarter, not 10 years from now. But yet, if I have any plan of longevity in this business, and I know insurance, there's a lot of plan for, I could be doing this in 20 to 30 years and be wildly successful financially if I can build that book of business, which means I need referrals, I need return business, repeat business. So let's build a sales system around how to play the long game with what the packages that we build are for our customers. And for the salespeople out there that think, well, I've only got 5 things that I can sell and they're all very retail oriented, you can absolutely still build a custom package. Think of all the things that you can include as a salesperson that your company may not actually have the resources or the back end to deliver, but that you can do as an individual, like helping your clients understand the value of what they just bought, helping them implement it, helping them reach out and figure out how does this impact other areas of my life, so that this single purchase, even if it's not a line of insurance, Trey, but even if it's something else, could still have a massive impact. And that just comes from your knowledge base, the value you can provide as a salesperson. Now, of course, maybe your company is large enough to have the customization capabilities that we do in insurance. Maybe your company is large enough to have the implementation plan that the marketing team can provide. So because we're going to be talking about a lot of different industries, Trey, you feel free to make it specific to insurance. So I'm going to try to make it so that it's applicable to all salespeople and how we play the long game when we build out a package. Yeah, kill it, man. Go ahead.
I was trying to figure out how many coverage options does a simple automobile policy have. A lot of agents take it for granted because this is very simple. Everybody has it. Everybody has similar coverages. There were 14 million different coverage combinations. Pardon me, I got a little cough.
Yeah.
14 million coverage combinations.
Wow.
And that's just on an auto policy. A homeowner's policy is even more customizable.
Right. That's crazy. So you think of something as I consider that almost a retail sale, because everybody driving a car in most states are required to have that auto insurance. And you tell me there's 14 million variations. That's insane. So just here in Florida, and granted, Florida is a very unique state for insurance, and you and I are very aware of why, but for a variety of things. But the idea then that something as ubiquitous as auto insurance could have 14 million variations, that means that no matter what you're selling, even if you've really only got a couple of standard packages that you're allowed to sell, you can still make those customized depending, of course, on what you do before, during, and after the sale to that individual client. So if we're thinking about playing the long game, Trey, I want to build a system for this so that whether I'm in insurance or whether I'm selling cars or I'm selling anything, I can really think about the long game for this client, because no matter what industry we're in, we know repeat business is a lot easier to convert than the original line, because this person knows, likes, and trusts me. Hopefully, they know that I'm invested in them, that I'm thinking about not just the immediate sale, but how I can help them be more successful in all the areas of their life they want to find success in. So when we think about the military, Trey, we haven't really gotten to bring a lot of that analogy in yet, but systems are where we found people were able to survive on the battlefield. Taking 18 and 19-year-old kids and giving them good, solid systems and good training for how to use them allowed us to step into very stressful situations like a sales call and come back out on the other end as more successful than we would have been otherwise. So we think about every system we place into a sales process removes a little more hope from how it is that we sell. So it's like trimming hope away with every new system. So we use the acronym TRIM because that's all we do in the military is throw acronyms back and forth. And I know insurance is actually very similar. There's a lot of acronyms.
Yeah.
So we think about acronyms in this systems build. The T in TRIM is the trigger element. So if I'm thinking about playing the long game with my next sale and every sale after that, so I want to make sure this person comes back to me as a customer for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. When do I need to trigger this system? Is it before I begin the sale? Is it during the sales process to understand a little bit about what this customer needs that might be unique that I could customize around? When do I need to pull a system off the shelf to think about the long game? So it's not just this sale I'm considering, but everyone after that. Where in the sales cycle does that start?
I think the difficult thing with insurance is there is a underlying need that the client or the customer may not realize or understand. So before you can begin any type of sale, you have to identify a problem and make the client understand that they have that problem or issue that they may not even be aware about. So I think a good tactic is usually asking the exploratory questions to uncover the need. Let the client figure out that they have the need before you start your solutions process.
So the trigger element is to help them identify what the need is that then you can help fulfill, where they may not recognize what that need actually is what I heard you say. So I'm coming to you with a situation that I think is a problem, but what I'm hearing then, Trey, is I may not fully understand the problem I think I have is not the real big problem that I should be dealing with. Is that right?
Right, Sean. So I'll give you an example. Everybody, because it's required by law, carries automobile insurance. They had the problem, which is I need automobile insurance, and then someone sold them a policy. But what they may not realize is they are grossly underinsured, and what that problem would mean if they're involved in a major accident. So they may not understand that they're grossly underinsured, and if you tell them that before they realize it, it just doesn't play well because it sounds like you're selling rather than solving a problem.
So it's helping them understand the ramifications of what happens if they don't make this decision correctly. So it's not you need to buy insurance from me. It's whether you buy insurance from me or not. I want to be invested in you and your success. Here's the likely outcome of if this goes really sideways, what you'll be faced with unless you make the appropriate choices. And again, whether you make those choices with me or not, and I love that method of selling because it's very low pressure. It's, I'm just here for your success. So here's what I'm seeing happen with other people that are vastly underinsured. Here's the personal impact it has on them. Here's the business impact it has on them, legal impact, medical impact, all the things, right? If I don't have the appropriate amount of coverage. And for all the salespeople out there not in insurance, of course, think about what the long-term ramifications would be if your customers make the wrong choices around what it is that you sell, either because they don't want it at all, they decide they don't need, additional framing for their house. If the whole thing could collapse on you, that's one possible ramification. All the things that could go wrong. Not that you need to just, dump a bunch of negativity on them, but it sounds like, and Trey, I absolutely agree with your tactic here. Encourage them to think about the pluses and the minuses, right? Here's all the things that could go wrong, but with the appropriate coverage or with the appropriate version of what it is that I sell, the product or service that I sell, here's the things that could go right. Here's where that could protect you. Here's where it could help you reach your goals. And of course, I'm sure that you're having conversations with your customers, not just around the appropriate amount of coverage I need and how I want to, make sure I don't have everything foreclosed on me due to hospital bills, but with the right amount of insurance, how much more quickly could I get back to my life, right? How much more quickly could I reach the goals that I have? And I know you're asking questions from your customers around, well, what else is going on with you? Do you run a business? Because that's going to enter more things about commercial lines that you could sell. Do you have a boat? Do you have, a secondary vehicle? Are you into classic cars? Do you have 4 of those sitting on the back lot? All these questions that are going to help you put together a better package. So to really learn about our customers, I love that as a trigger element. So now we're moving into the R and trim, which is making this process repeatable. So now that I know when to pull this off the shelf, and it sounds like when I'm in conversation with my customer is what we're talking about, what are the 5 or 6 steps that I need to follow to make sure that throughout the sales process, I'm following the idea of playing the long game, not just making the immediate sale, but making sure this becomes a customer that I do business with for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. What are those 5 or 6 things that you would advise an agent does consistently every single time to play the long game?
Well, I think, first of all, I love that question because I think that people make buying decisions when they sense an immediate need and they get that tunnel vision to fix that immediate need. And with insurance, of course, there could be a multitude of problems that you uncover just talking to the client. They may not be ready or willing to solve all of the problems at once, but when you uncover each compartmentalized problem and you make it to where you become the expert, that you understand that this is a problem, you understand the ramifications, and you have a solution, that person trusts you a lot more than they did prior to that call, because in most cases, a lot of times they never spoke to someone that address those needs because they came ready to place an order, and then someone placed that order and didn't address the other problems that were on the table, maybe because they weren't as profitable or they were messy or it was going to require more work. Whatever the case may be, you can set yourself apart by figuring out all of the problems in the household and go from there.
So I love the idea then of figuring out what are the ripple effects that I can help solve or connect. And it's very important for salespeople to recognize that it's not just the things that you have to sell that are the solutions you can bring to the table. Oftentimes, it's the network we have that's equally as valuable to our clients and our prospects as the products and services that we have to offer. So if you hear a need, don't mind the dog barking in the background on this call. The client might say that to you. We're trying to figure out what to do with the dog, and you happen to know a dog sitter in the same geography or a dog walker. Brilliant, right? Doesn't mean they have to hire the person, but if you could be that person that's constantly bringing resources because you're thinking about on every call everything that you're noticing and who in my network could help be of service, that's incredibly valuable. But I love the idea you also mentioned of making a note of all of the things that are potential solutions that you could provide, even if it's not the right time and place to solve them now. Because something that a lot of salespeople have trouble with is coming up with reasons to reach back out to a customer. Because what conversation are you going to have? Hey, that car insurance policy that I sold you 6 months ago is coming up for renewal. You thinking about renewing with us? That's kind of a horrible conversation to have because you're not bringing any value to me. Like, you could have said this in an email, but if you call up and you're like, hey, just I wanted to check everything going on with you. I know we talked about that boat that you had sitting on the back lot. We talked about the homeowner's insurance policy. I wanted to let you know about some rate increases that are coming down the line, and the car insurance thing. I'm not really concerned about that. When your car insurance is due to expire because you're going to get some notices from us in the mail. I wanted to make sure that you were aware of everything else that we had last chatted about that could be impacting your life in a positive or negative way. That's a call I want to have because you're bringing value to me that can't be expressed easily in an email, and it's stuff that I would want to know about. So the idea of capturing those things along the way to give us a reason to reach back out in the future, absolutely brilliant. Are there any other things that I need to make sure that I'm doing, asking, or loading up or customizing as part of what it is that I'm selling, Trey, to make sure I've got this customer for the long term?
Well, depending on how well you can craft your sales funnel, and I know some salespeople have no control over their systems and processes. but life events bring a lot of opportunity and change and volatility. So, marriage, if you had a landing page on your website for, 10 things you need to know before getting married, that could affect your insurance. Every single person that lands on that page has some interest in, what you are looking at or selling, and trying to figure out before those big life events, birthdays, something that happens every year for everybody, obviously at different times. Your life insurance rate will go up if you don't have life insurance on your birthday every year. So you can, do a little pre-birthday call and say, and by the way, you've got a couple days before your birthday that you could, by the way, get the best rate you could probably get in your lifetime. And it's going to expire in 3 days. So it creates a little bit of incentive to, pull the trigger on something that they knew that they needed. You addressed it before, and now you're giving them an offer that's got an expiration date. So that would be a big one too. But, just the relationship selling, you have to be aware of these life events because they do change the makeup of the household and the exposures and things. So it is an ongoing process of uncovering needs, really.
And I love the idea then of identifying what are the benchmarks, we could call them, because they're going to apply to both personal and professional life. But what are the benchmarks that somebody goes through in the lifetime cycle of what it is that I sell? And obviously, insurance, especially life insurance, from now until the moment that you pass on, life insurance could have a part in, and a lot of different life events could play with that, right? Marriage, illness, birthdays, all the things could change for that. But for any salespeople out there listening, something that we may even want to load back up into the trigger element for all of us, and before we start having conversations with our prospects, what are the 5 or 10 things that happen in the course of someone's life cycle with us as a customer? So let's say they're with us for 30 years. What are all of the events that are going to occur for them professionally and personally? Some of us are only selling business items. So the things that could happen in a business, I hire new people. How is it that what you sell could impact or affect new hires? How do you get them spun up more quickly? If it's something along the lines of a business sale, right? You may be dealing with a commercial line for business insurance. Well, if I'm looking to sell my business at the 30-year point, maybe I need to, as an agent, put together just some ideas about who you need to be connected to, what you need to know as you get ready to sell your business. How does that affect your insurance? How could it affect your insurance? Is it going to go up, down, sideways, left, right, all the things, right? So to identify what those things are, great trigger element, but in your repeatable process, identify, all right, what are those life cycle events that I need to be tracking for every one of my prospects? Professionally and personally. Of course, it's going to differ depending on what you sell, but that's a great one. So, go ahead.
I was going to say on commercial, kind of shifting my brain gears here. On the commercial side, you're dealing with someone who is a risk taker by nature. Nobody goes into business because it's easy. They go into business because they want to confront the challenge, or they want to do it their way, or they want to make more money, or they want to be their own boss. But these are, inherently risk takers. And the challenge for an insurance agent sometimes is trying to mitigate that risk by saying, how you're going to give me some of your insurance business and you're going to accept some risk. So let's find the happy medium where you are okay accepting that level of risk. And I think one thing that really makes it easy to uncover some of the biggest fears that a business owner has, and I'm stealing this from David Carruthers. He's there in Tampa, Florida, but he asked the question, what keeps you up at night? And that question floors me as a business owner, because I could tell you, the things that I worry about, and of those that can be mitigated by insurance, that's an easy sell because they've already self-identified some of these problems. The other thing is learning the industry trends so you can see what other business owners in that industry are dealing with, and they may not be aware. Kind of like we talked about the automobile insurance, people underestimate the risk of their financial exposure when they have an automobile accident. That's the insurance agent's job, is to kind of convey those realistic figures. But on the business front, it's sometimes identifying things that are maybe not a challenge or a problem, because until you have a claim, they really don't exist. So cyber exposures would be a good one. People are passing around information over the internet, and until you have a cyber hack and get shut down, you can't fully appreciate the amount of cost, the amount of time, the stress involved of letting your clients know, oh, by the way, you gave me your personal information and I released it out to the public unbeknownst to me. So, those are the big things. And another angle on the business side of things is perpetuation. So you could talk about perpetuation of who is stepping into your role when one day you ride off into the sunset, you retire, or heaven forbid, if something happened to you, who is taking on your role, your responsibilities? Where do you see your management in the next 10 years? So that would be another angle, because once they start thinking about perpetuation, it's a lot easier to work in. Okay, we need to have things in place to make sure that you have a company to give over to your heir apparent. So let's make sure they're still a company. Heaven forbid a crisis happen, a claim happen, a loss happen, because unfortunately, businesses, if they're not properly insured, half of the time they go out of business and don't reopen.
Yeah, and so you've really brought up a good point, and this is something we've covered on Bulletproof Selling in the past, which is not necessarily only what's keeping you up at night, but here are the things that should be keeping you up at night that you may not know about. That's a great value-added conversation, especially if you can make it industry specific, or definitely apply it to business owners or to people looking for auto insurance, or whatever specific thing it is that that they entered your world about. So if we've got the trigger element, repeatable element, the iron trim is making sure this thing is improvable. We realized on the battlefield that about as quickly as we would adjust our tactics, the people that we were engaging with would adjust their tactics as well. Now, while we're not in a battle with our customers, well, the economy is changing awfully fast, inflation's going up and down, a lot of things are going to be affected, plus whatever uniquely is going on in our customers' lives, industries, and personal lives. So what should I be doing on a quarterly basis to make sure that this thing is keeping up with the changes in the market? How do I improve it based on what I'm already doing? Do I need to adjust the questions I'm asking, the things I'm bringing to the table? How would you recommend that I make sure this thing stays up to date?
Well, I think the claims trends are an indication of future trends. So when you see more claims happening in an industry segment, that's a good indication that you might want to double your efforts to make sure your clients are properly insured for those types of losses. So I think with that, it brings an opportunity to re-educate your client on what is happening. And I think there's a lot to be said about peer pressure. If you are tightening the coverage of your other clients in a similar industry, and you can go to your client that might be reluctant and say, this is what your competitors are doing. Are you going to follow suit, or are you going to roll the dice? Because they seem to think that this is going to be a problem for the future, and you still have last year's coverage. So
nice. I love that. I love that. So make sure they're keeping up to date on what else is going on in the industry. And of course, if you can bring in specific examples of the folks that maybe even not competitors. Competitors are great though, but even peers, right? Maybe we're in non-competitive industries. We're all selling different things. But if you came to me and said, Sean, other people that are training in sales are all worried about this, you have my attention, right? Because that's something that's going to affect me, even if they're not in direct competition with me. So I love that idea of improvement. Now, the M in trim, the final piece of this is to measure it. So if I'm taking the time, Trey, to build this system to make sure that I'm having different conversations with the people that I'm reaching out to, it's going to take time to learn it, going to take time to do it differently. I need to justify that time when I could just be banging the phone like I was before, getting mediocre results. Maybe I'm making a number, maybe I'm not, but obviously I want to keep these clients for the long term. So what am I measuring to make sure that this system is working and that it's worth keeping in place, that I don't just go back doing what I was doing before? Am I measuring gross sales? Am I measuring policies written in your world? Or am I measuring something different, like leading indicators, pipeline velocity, engagement before the sale or the quote? What am I measuring to make sure this is working?
So I think retention numbers are the obvious choice because, again, in our
Oh, yeah. If
industry,
playing the long game,
most of our
yeah.
revenue
Are my people
comes
coming back to me?
right. Most of our revenue is going to be from renewals, not from new business, and so you know, retention is the crown jewel of every insurance agent. It is the mark that we really strive for. A high retention number typically means that we're doing a good job, and you have to balance out some new business because you got to take some risks when you're writing new clients. But obviously retention is a big number, and I would say if you have touch points, if you're measuring how many times you're reaching out to a client, I would say those quality touch points are probably pivotal in seeing that renewal year after year. And if you're not measuring your touch points, your client is starting to get distant, and then maybe they renew a few times, but they're essentially neutral to you at that point. And
Yeah,
any
just
agent
the
can
vendor.
come in
Yeah.
and say, I'm going to do the job that your agent's not doing. So touch points and retention, I would say those are the two biggest marks of success.
Amazing, Trey. So with this, we've built a system that any salesperson can use today to begin playing the long game. Because I don't care what industry you're in, if you can get repeat sales, or if you can be the person that client comes to figure out what's next for them on their journey, personally or professionally, you're in a much better position than if you're just seen as one of 1,000 people that are all offering the same thing. So great sales system, Trey. So I'd love to give people a way to get deeper into your world. If they're in insurance, maybe they want to figure out what young agent council is near them, because I know the Florida Association of Insurance Agents is for Florida, but this is a nationwide thing. So how do we get deeper into the Young Agents Council world? And of course, if we're interested in learning more about Wells Insurance, how do we do that?
So the Big I also has a Young Agents Council that's nationwide. I would highly recommend getting involved there. So every state should have their own program. If you're in Florida, we would love to have you as a member of the Young Agents Council. Even if you're 10 years or older in the industry, or 40 years and older, you can still be a YAC champion. Those are folks that really provide us the experience and wisdom and pass that on. We love our YAC champions. So the Florida Association of Insurance Agents, that is our state association. Great group of folks. I would highly recommend getting involved with them first. The Big I, again, that's nationwide. You could be in any state and belong to that. Those are great places to start.
What about Wells Insurance? What territory do you cover? What state do I need to be in to take advantage of what you guys have going on?
So we're Florida only. We primarily write in the North Florida region. I'm from Macclenny, Florida. It's a tiny little town next to Jacksonville. So that's where my office is located. So in the off chance someone's listening from Macclenny, Florida, I probably know you and your mom and dad. But if you're not a customer, I would love to talk to you about your insurance.
Outstanding, sir. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on Bulletproof Selling. And of course, if you are a follower of sales systems, you love sales process, hopefully you're deep into our world here as well. Of course, every single these live stream conversations is archived over on our YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribing over on YouTube. And if you're listening to us, you're probably doing so on Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, any of the podcast channels. We're on all of them. Make sure that you're leaving us a review there. That really helps get in front of other salespeople. And I know maybe we don't want to give them the same competitive advantage, but the more that we use process, the more we use systems, the easier it is to work with one another. And of course, if you want to add value to any other salespeople on your team, make sure you're sharing these episodes out with them as well. And of course, for every one of the sales systems that we built, it is archived for free over at our website, bulletproofselling.us, where you can get access to every one of the sales systems that we built in written form. And of course, learn more about what we've got going on at Bulletproof Selling. Well, Trey, thank you so much for serving the young insurance agents of the world, the sales community of the world. Let's get out there and make selling bulletproof.
All right. Thanks, Sean.